Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Angie.
And together, we are
Twinfinity. We are twin flames in union, sharing our journey through a series of videos. This is now video number 20. It's called the Ascension Process, which includes surrendering, loss, and death of ego as part of our story. But before we get into the story, Rob has some stuff to say.
Yes, I do. It's obvious we're not inside of our place. No, we have put on our snowshoes, and we have driven over 2 hours out into the mountains, and we have hiked about an hour and a half up to a place called Sherbrooke Lake. Now, we actually walked out onto the lake itself, and it was windy. It was just too windy. It was cold.
Very cold.
There was snow blowing by us. There was just no way we could stand out in the middle of the lake or kneel out in the middle of the lake and do our video from there. So we've come back into the trees, and I'm going to pick up our little laptop here and try to give you a tour without really knowing which direction you're going to be pointed. So hopefully this turns out. Behind us is a place called the Cathedral Crags. Hopefully it's showing up nice. I'm going to spin you westward. You run into Mount Field, and way over there is about where the lake was, down through the trees. Coming back through us, is the trail that we came up, and what we see is some nice big trees in front of us. So that's pretty much a panoramic of where we are. When we finally get done, yes, it's going to be another hour and a half back down the hill to find our vehicle again.
Here, and I'm going to cover this up. Just in case
we're going to cover up our poor little keyboard. We get a gust of wind and snow blowing by us. And I may put my hat back on just simply because my poor old bare head is either A, going to get sunburned out here in the snow, or else B, it's just going to get cold.
Now, we lost our mountain view, so I'm going to see if I can bring that back. Does that work?
Yeah, and we also have a couple of streaks of light we can see.
Yes, we do.
Angie's having to duck it. I'm okay. I'm all just fine. So anyway, we are out here in the a little bit cold. It's, well, in the trees here, it only feels like about minus 10 Celsius, which would be about plus 10 Fahrenheit, somewhere around there.
I like how you say only. Most people are probably gasping, going, oh my God, what are you crazy people doing?
2/3 of this continent has had winter this year. Everybody has felt what we're kneeling in right now.
Yep. We've had more snow this year than we've had in how many years?
Oh, they're saying 25 years anyway. Where we used to live up in Edmonton, we used to get snow that would build up 3 and 4 and 5 feet deep on the yards if it was a bad winter. Calgary doesn't get that, except for this year. We don't know what to do with the snow this year. We don't have spots to put it anymore almost. Anyway, on should go the show. It's Angie's time to get started.
Actually, we're going to do a recap.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's my turn to get started.
Well, I choke on whatever I'm choking on.
Okay. So anyway, last video, Rob considers locking Angie out of his life for good. Angie meets a soul friend who is going through the same experiences as Angie is in terms of no job, no money, and facing eviction. And right at the end of last video, Angie gets locked out of her apartment, September 23rd, 1998, after not having paid rent for 3 months. Being out of money sucks.
Yeah, it's amazing that I was able to stay in my apartment as long as I was, considering not paying rent for 3 months. So we have, again, lots to cover. We're trying to cover a bit of the story, and so much happens in such a short amount of time. So I'll get going on this, and hopefully I won't be reading the whole video. Hopefully we'll have time to chat a bit too. So I'm starting at September 24th, 1998 in my journal. This was just after, of course, that I had been evicted, according to the recap. So I said, okay, God, it's just you and me. Comfort me and let me know I'm okay and that I've not messed up my whole life. God, following you is the hardest thing I've ever done. You said I was here this time around to learn of love and trust. Well, I'd say I've got the trust part down. I put all of me into your hands. God, I will admit the part of me is scared. Being locked out of my apartment yesterday was both relieving and scary. I feel relieved because it's finally over. No more waiting, living in fear of someone knocking on my door. Finally, after 3 months, it's over. I am appreciative of that. The fear is what now? What about all my stuff? Where do I live? The head and the ego has lots of questions. I don't feel the least bit angry at you which is shocking. I thought I would feel very angry at God, but that comes later. Don't worry. There's more. I know deep in my heart that this was part of the plan, that I agreed to this. The soul me is calm, but the ego me is in shock and fear. God, it is scary putting all of me and all I have and all I am into your hands, especially in this world we live in now, where people are so self-sufficient. I do thank you for the support I have with Tanya being here for me. Last night when I walked in crying, she let me stay here, and Sonia being very calm and supportive. So I had obviously told Sonia about this as well, and she wasn't freaking out going, what the heck are you doing? And I said, especially me being able to call Rob last night, and for the amazing conversation we had. So this is where it gets a little surprising. I'm actually going to tell Rob a little bit about what's going on. I said, thank you for preparing him for what I had to say. Walking back to Tanya's last night, I cried because I felt by being on this path I was hurting Rob and my parents. That hurt more than losing my apartment with everything in it. But talking with Rob reassured me. He said he isn't hurt, and he doesn't know yet about the apartment, but he does know I'm staying at Tanya's. And he knows I have no money. So I'm just backtracking a bit, explaining what happened when I called Rob. So I said I called Rob after talking with Sonia last night. He said he'd just called me about 6 or 7 minutes ago, when I told him I wasn't even home and hadn't gotten his message yet. He talked about his day and then picked up on things that were not right with me, so he said, now it's my turn to ask you what's wrong. I just kind of stammered that it was all too much to tell him. He said, you're bankrupt, aren't you? I said, hell yeah, that happened months ago.
Yeah.
That's the least of my worries.
You know, I hopefully have gained a little bit more tact over the years. Gee, by the sounds of it, you're bankrupt. Oh, sorry.
Such compassion.
Not very sensitive, I guess. Aw.
So I said I was amazed at how calm he was. Then we got talking about the fact that I've had to do this to help others later as the world goes through major changes. He was so open to everything. He agreed that our world is going through and will continue to go through major changes. I have to try and flip pages with my cold hands. We also talked of me being on this path with so many others on it now. I told him that Tanya, Vic, Beth, and Sonia are all on this path and all supporting me. Rob felt most happy and relieved that I've got some other people with me now on this path. That before it was hard for him when it was just me and him because he felt like he had to shoulder all of the weight of the spiritual stuff and support me. He feels better now that it's not just him supporting me. He wants to thank all of my friends for their support. I was so amazed at how open and supportive he was. He said I caught him on the perfect day because he was feeling very peaceful and happy with life. Angels must have been preparing him. We had a great talk, and it was nice to open up some. I told him last Wednesday about a little bit of things that were going on, like I was feeling like I was living two lives. Well, it was nice to let him in on things last night. I felt like I was betraying and lying to him before, and that really hurt. I can't lie to him. So it was amazing that I was able to finally share some of this with him, and he wasn't going, what? Again, shocking how this path really works, how people are prepared for whatever they need to be prepared for sometimes. I mean, there was no way I thought I could tell him, and he was open to it. Of course, he didn't know the whole truth yet, but still he knew some. So I said, my mind keeps racing with all these questions, wondering about all my stuff. My mind is lost because it has no way of fixing this, even though my mind is finally surrendering to God. Nothing else to do. How I'd love to be in the mountains right now with Rob and God. Well, we're there now.
Took a few years.
Just a few years. It feels like a dream right now. It just doesn't feel real. I'm in such shock over the whole deal with my apartment and with telling Rob everything. Just total shock. So, yeah, just trying to process all of this craziness that was going on. So now I said, I don't know how I'm going to face Rob when he finds out about all of this. He'll probably look down on me and think I've given up on life and given my life up waiting for some God to come save me. The thought of losing him again hurts, but I've made my choice. He's going to think what he's going to think. So, again, I've just accepted. I'm on this path and I got to do what I got to do. If Rob can accept it, great. If he can't, I'm sad to see him go, but I know I got to do what I got to do.
Now, what I was thinking wasn't really all that different than what Angie just said, other than the thought that I I still I still totally enjoyed her company and her presence. I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. I didn't think that she should have to go like be tarred and feathered out in the middle of the street because she managed to run herself completely out of money and end up in trouble. That's not at all how I think. Now, but the circumstances that got her to where she was at that time in my life I didn't have a lot of compassion for that. Like, surely to goodness you have to be capable of being able to do something, but apparently not. Not every time does a person have the ability to add everything together. If they're following a path, they're following a path. And if anything I've learned from what Angie was going through then was to have compassion for people that you don't necessarily understand. Just because people aren't following your path doesn't mean that they're not on a path that they still need to be on.
Mm-hmm.
It taught me a lot, all the troubles that Angie was having.
And on that note, it's interesting, again, the more I share of my story back then, the more of you that are coming out and saying, yeah, I've been in similar places, or I'm going through exactly that right now. It just shocks me, quite frankly, how many other people are going through either facing eviction or without money, or losing their stuff. This is part of the ascension path for some of us. It's not for everybody, but personally, I don't know why it's not for everybody. I don't know why only some of us have had to experience this. Maybe some of you know. If you have answers, feel free to give us comments.
Well, Angie and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, and I did comment that she lost a bunch of stuff, but if you back up earlier in the story, about 4 or 5 videos, I lost my mind for a few weeks, and I don't know. I don't know which is worse. I'm still happy to have some stuff, but gee, the stress that it's taken ever since then, always being afraid of overstressing myself, that takes a toll too. So
Yeah.
She lost physical stuff, and I lost my mind for a while.
Yeah, good point.
Neither one of it's any fun.
We all lose something on this path.
It all seems that we lose something. That's very true.
Yeah, it's part of the ascension process, because as we're raising our vibration, things that don't match our vibration must be released. So whether it's money, whether it's things, whether it's homes, whether it's your mind.
And wording it that way, wording it that way makes a little bit of sense. I was growing and growing spiritually, but I was very, very much using my own little drill sergeant to keep me focused on other things in life that were very, very 3D, and maybe I didn't match my own ascension level.
Yeah, that could very well be.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Amazing what happens when you
Good point.
When you have chit-chat in the middle of a video.
Figure things out just as you're talking about them.
See, she writes down interesting stuff in her journals, and when she reads them, sometimes I get clues too. I say that every so often.
So now this is just a couple days later, and I said, well, there's courage. I talked on the phone with Rob for nearly 2 hours and told him everything. He knows I've been locked out, have no money, all about things with court, etc. I told him all of it, and he didn't freak. I could write details, but not now. In other words, I was like, I need time to process this, because I was just in complete shock. Like, how on earth did I just tell this man everything, and he's still in my life? It's like, what? I mean, here, just, a few weeks back, he was trying to get me out of his life and still debating, should I keep her, should I not? And now I've come clean with everything, and he's not walking away? Pretty amazing. So this is an interesting thing. Remember at last video I was sharing how my friend Beth and I were still going to these little classes and courses at a bookstore. They were just like a $5 thing, so of course she was paying for me since I had no money. But we went to one October 7th of 1998, according to my journal, and it was called a Soul Retrieval lecture. So it's fascinating that the things that I was actually experiencing, we were learning. So it was like the universe was at least giving me something, even though I didn't understand it again, like I was saying last video, like I understand now. I was at least being told something of what the hell I was going through and why I was going through it.
Leap.
So, I wrote in my journal, I was just taking notes from this class, and I just wanted to share some of them in case you guys want to check it out on the internet. So it's called the crucifixion stage, is how they explained it back then. And they were talking about different time periods in our past, in our history. So they were saying August of 1987 was called the harmonic convergence. To be honest, I haven't looked that up. I don't even really know what that means. But in case that resonates or makes sense with any of you, I thought I'd share it.
Just to let you know, we do have a couple of hikers that are going to come on by, so we might have to say hi to them. We're only about 10 feet off the side of the trail.
Right off the path, because we didn't want to get too lost on.
We're doing well.
We're having camp there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing a video, so we're having fun.
Yep.
Am I interrupting?
Oh, that's okay. You can crash our video. Enjoy your snowshoe. You get it all when you're out in the mountains. So then it was talking about November 1990 was 11/11, which, again, back then I knew nothing about what 11/11 meant. And then in December 1994 it was talking about 12/12, which is, I wrote in my journal, was opening portals to allow Ascension to come down to Earth. So how I understood it and still understand it is that a lot of this Ascension stuff was supposed to happen earlier than what it is now, but there just wasn't enough energy throughout Earth to make it happen. So then we had to delay it. Not we as in humans, but just the whole
process didn't seem to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I have the name Dr. Joshua David Stone in my journal, and I actually was so curious to know what that was or who that was that I looked it up. And he's actually got a website that talks about Ascension. So very interesting that I have this kind of stuff in my journal from way back then. Who knows? So then I'm just sharing about the lady that we went to the previous lecture on. Her name was Rose, that we talked about in the last video. So I'm saying I called Rose, the one who told us of this stage in one of the Tuesday night lectures, and talking with her helped. She's been through this and lost all of her stuff too. She gave me the name of a book out there on this stuff, and apparently it's very new, this whole crucifixion stage. Before talking with Rose, I called Mom and Dad to let them know what's been going on. You can imagine that was a hard phone call.
That was probably even harder than talking to me, because you didn't expect anything positive to come out of that. You knew your mom and dad would have to say or do something.
Yeah. So trying to tell your parents, I'm going through a crucifixion stage, and I've just been evicted, and all of my stuff is locked in my apartment, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get it back or how I'm going to get it back. I was confused about all this myself. So talking to my parents, and also talking to my parents again, because I'd always been the good one of the family, and now I have to tell them I've just messed up my entire life? What on earth? By the way, Rob's just cut off his head because he's trying to save his poor legs.
Oh, my legs are going to sleep and everything kind of hurts.
You have to excuse us. When you do a video out in nature, you're just going to get it all. You got to be prepared for everything.
I'm back. Hi.
So I wrote, that was tough, but not as bad as I thought. They didn't freak, and Dad didn't get angry or judgmental. I thank God and the angels for that. They were going to come visit this weekend, but decided not to. Thank God again. I'm not ready to explain all of this to them. So, I mean, I've shared some, but, having to meet them in person, I wasn't ready for that. So I wrote then, I'm extremely impressed with myself for how well I'm coping with no home at the moment. Over 2 weeks I've been locked out, and I'm totally homesick. I'm not totally homesick. I only go through tiny spurts of missing home and missing my freedom and missing my stuff. I'm coping very well, living from place to place with only a little bag of stuff. I'm accepting that I've made it through the worst of losing everything. So what I was referring to by living from place to place is, first I went and stayed at my friend Tanya's, and then I ended up at my friend Beth's. I ended up staying with her for a month, basically the whole month of October of 1998, and I'll explain later why I didn't stay longer. But she basically took me in, even though she's married and, you know, her husband really wasn't too open to all of this. She took me in because one of the things we had both been told from the angels for many months was that we had a purpose and a mission to do together. We were told that we would be writing books and doing all of these other healing things, so we thought, well, if I moved in with her, then we could start doing our work together. So it wasn't that she just took me in out of pity, she took me in because we were going to be working together as well. So by this time in my journal, I'm kind of living at her place, but still staying every once in a while at Tanya's just to give her support and, you know, help her out as well. Because at this point, she had not been evicted. This is an interesting, I just wanted to share this because it talks about what we talked about in our first question and answer video about, if you guys have seen that, about being like you're in a car but you're not really driving and you have no control. It's funny, this is in my journal back from October 12th of 1998. I said I had a dream of my little Chevette, that I was trying to park it in the parking lot, but the car was half driving itself. I put it in reverse and it was still going forward. Geez, I know what that means. Can we say I feel a little out of control of my life? I'm in the driver's seat, but someone else is driving. Sounds about right. Kind of like what Rose talked about. We turn the wheel one way, but the car still goes the other way. Good old Ascension Process. Spirit is more in control now, and I guess I'm still not used to it. Still haven't fully accepted it. So it's interesting, we had talked about that on one of our question and answer videos, the fact that once you get on this path, and once you surrender control to your soul on this path, you can make all the choices you want, but your soul might give you a whole different direction. And that's kind of what I was experiencing. What else have I got here? Okay, this is now October 16th, and I said I'm on my way back to Beth's. I decided to stop in and check my mail and say hi to Rob. I hadn't talked to him since Sunday, plus Sonia was wanting to know how he was doing. So I went and knocked on his door, and he answered. He was very happily surprised to see me, and even mentioned that he was glad I stopped by. So here I am shocked. First of all, I'm brave enough to go see Rob. I don't even live in the apartment building now, and I'm just going to bravely stop in. And he's actually happy to see me. So I said we sat and talked and listened. Then we snuggled, big surprise. He was in a loving, nurturing mood, and we talked. Sorry, I lost my spot. It was very nice, and I enjoyed the closeness and nurturing. There's more, but I can't find my spot now. Here we go. He said as much as he'd like me to stay, he needed me to go because he's got a busy 3 weeks ahead of him. He needs to be well rested. He said if I stayed, he'd not have a good sleep because he'd be thinking of me and then wake up in a few hours and want to be close. By this time, it was 1 a.m, and I really didn't want to go back to Beth's because I didn't want to wake them up. I felt it was very rude to walk in at 2 a.m. when I'm a guest. So I asked Rob if I could sleep in the weight room or on the couch. Nope. He said just having me there was too distracting and he wouldn't be able to sleep. I was totally impressed with his ability to put himself first and set boundaries. I've been harassing him about that since we met. Even when I told him I really didn't want to go back to Beth's, he still stuck to his needs for me to leave. Wow, that's new for him. The angels told me it was okay to go back to Beth's, but I just didn't feel it was right, so I slept in my storage room.
Now, in our apartments, what we had was, if you can imagine that on a particular floor there'd be 7 units, but there would be 14 doors because 7 of the units are going right, or 7 of the doors go right into the apartments, and the other 7 doors are for built-in but separate storage areas, storage rooms for each apartment. So I guess they had not locked her storage room
Yes.
door. And so she went into her storage room, which would have, of course, no window and a light bulb. And that's where she stayed.
And how big were those storage rooms?
They were about 5 feet wide and 7 feet long.
Like, I remember for some reason, they hadn't changed the lock on my storage room door, and I don't even know why I thought to check, but yeah, I still had the key to that, and they hadn't even emptied out the stuff in my storage room. So, it was kind of cramped in there, and to be honest, it was really hard to sleep in there because I had to, like, bunch up into a little ball because I still had stuff in there.
She's a small person. She made it work.
But it was amazing. I slept in my storage room. This isn't the only time this happens. It happens again. So yeah, Rob has finally set some boundaries, and he's like, nope, you can't stay here. So
Great time to set boundaries, but I guess did.
yeah.
But then again, did I really know you were staying in your storage room that night?
I don't think so.
I
don't think I advertised to you. Though it
No,
was gonna be
I think I didn't realize that. Not that it made a ton of difference. Continue on.
Yeah, so this is what happens when you're homeless. You sleep in your storage room. So now, I don't even remember the date of this, October 18th. I said I feel really sad right now and need to cry. Sad for where I'm not, sad for all I feel I'm missing out on, and sad for my losses. I'm grieving for the paths I will never take and for the moments lost, the dreams gone and never to be had. I'm grieving because on this spiritual path, it means that there are people I won't be able to have as close friends anymore. There's places I won't get to go to, and there's things I won't get to do. My ego must grieve as it passes control over to my soul. My soul is in charge now, and I feel sad about that right now. I had wanted to go play backgammon with Rob when he called, and he was on his way out to the mountains with his friend. So I was just grieving about so many things and feeling sad about my life is just totally changed now. Just from learning about this stuff of Ascension through this one class that my friend and I went to, I was realizing that, yes, my life was different. I was never going to, at least I thought at that point, have any control of my life again. So I said, it just hurts. I'm not supposed to look back, but how can I not? I'm still grieving over my losses. In the present moment, I feel really, really sad. I feel like I've lost so much, and all of a sudden it's hitting me like a ton of bricks. I'm feeling the loss of everything. And I hate feeling such lack of control in my life. My life is not at all my own anymore. So, really feeling the death of my old self, the death of ego, and just sort of trying to accept and surrender to my soul, which was a whole new process to go through. So now I'm trying to surrender, so I'm asking for help from the spirit world. And this is now October 19th, and I said, okay, spirit world, I need help. I need you to teach me about surrender from your point of view. Letting go was never a big strength of mine, but I realized the growth and strides I've made. Now I need help surrendering all the way. Please help. And surprisingly, I did get some channeling. I hadn't been channeling much at this point at all because, number one, I wasn't really feeling happy with the spirit world for the fact that I was on this path and they had been led to this path. But I was asking for help now. So the answer I got was, Dear child of God, we understand the distress that does cause you. Just sit back and breathe a moment and we will commune with you. Now this is interesting. They're talking all about surrender, and they talk about it in really beautiful ways, I thought. So they're saying surrender is letting go, or letting all go into God's hands. Surrender is leaving all in God's hands. Surrender is not taking back and checking and rechecking what's in God's hands. Surrendering is allowing your thoughts and actions be free. Surrendering is living not now, not yesterday or tomorrow. Then they did a really neat thing. They spelled out surrender down the page and then used each letter to write something. So they said surrender your ego. So that was for the S. Then the U is use your soul as a guide. R is remember you are loved. The next star is relinquish control. E is for end the fight. N, never give or never go back, always forward. D, develop new strategies. E, enjoy the nowness. And R, revive your soul. So I'm just going to read that again because I thought it was just really quite brilliant. Surrender your ego. Use your soul as a guide. Remember you are loved. Relinquish control. Enjoy or end the fight. Never go back, always go forward. Develop new strategies. Enjoy the nowness and revive your soul. That's pretty profound. I love Spirit, how they talk. They have such wisdom. So I asked for help surrendering, and they gave me some insights. Quite neat.
A definition of surrender.
Totally. Totally. So now I'm writing my friend Beth and I. She was going through this, but certainly not to the same degree I was. I mean, she hadn't lost her home. She hadn't lost any stuff, any friends or anything like that. But she was also going through a bit of the Ascension process. And our friend's coming back now. Our snowshoer.
Hello again.
So she was also going through this, and we had gone to a place called Elbow Falls, which, do you want to tell them a little about Elbow Falls?
Elbow Falls, there's two main rivers that run through Calgary. They join right in the middle of Calgary. And the Elbow River is the smaller of the two, but Elbow Falls is about close to a 45-minute drive outside of town towards the mountains again. And it's about it used to be about a 6-meter waterfall, but with a bunch of floods that we had a few years ago, the base filled up with a bunch of rocks, and now it only plunges about 3 meters. Real nice spot, though. Lots of people go out there for Sunday picnics.
It's beautiful. So we went out there to do our own little ceremonial thing that we had decided would be a good idea to release our egos and surrender control to our souls. So I wrote, we are having to grieve over the death of our old selves. That's exactly how we feel. A part of me and my ego has died, and I feel sad. I'm not fully sure why talking with Rob triggers it so deeply, but it does. I'm grieving over the way things used to be with us, knowing it will never be like that again. I've changed so much that I have to reacquaint with myself and who I am now. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and I miss me. I don't know who I am right now, and I feel like someone else just walked into my body. I look the same on the outside, but inside, it's someone I don't know yet. It's pretty scary when a person changes so much and so fast that even the person doesn't even know themselves. The ego is gone and the soul is in charge now. I don't know my soul yet, and I miss the old me. Not to say that the old me was so great, but she was familiar. I need to let the old me go and step into the new me, but I'm not sure how to do that. It's time to let the little scared, passive, quiet, sheltered Angie go and fly where she will, and allow the new, strong, free, brave, courageous, speak my truth, be myself Angie in. I need to ceremoniously let the old me go so I can fully allow the new me in. I can't step forward until then. So then the next day I said, well, I did it. Out at Elbow Falls, I let the ego me go and let the soul me take over. I wrote the ego me a letter of thanks, love, and goodbye, and then sent her on her way as I let the letter go into the water. So my friend and I had ceremoniously done this thing where we wrote our ego selves a letter and then ripped it up and let it float down the falls, just as our own little way of releasing our old self. So now, I said, my soul is in charge now. I sent my ego off yesterday and welcomed my soul in. She has full control over what happens now, as I let her in yesterday. She said she'd like to write to me today and tell me about her. Well, go for it, in control soul. So,
in control soul.
I wrote that. And I found it absolutely weird. I never remembered channeling my soul, but I have channeled information from my soul in my journal. So this is what she says.
This is a different definition of talking to yourself.
Totally. Good point. So she says, "Hello there. I'll not start with cheery hellos because I know you are not happy at this moment, nor are you excited to be chatting with me." No, I wasn't. I wasn't happy about surrendering myself and the life that I'd known to my ear, to my soul. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. It was all just weird to me. She says, "Yes, giving up your control and ascending to be with me is quite the struggle. The few who are at this stage on earth right now are having the same struggle. The anger, grief, sadness, and loss." So I was like, okay, well, at least you have compassion. You understand that this isn't easy. Thank you for your kindness, but this is still weird. All right. Now we get some interesting stuff happening. This is October 22nd, and I said, well, I'm ready to check myself into a mental hospital. I've been irrational and deluding myself from the beginning. I'm a nutcase. I've lost it, and I really need help. My apartment as of yesterday was empty, and my parents knew more about it than I did. So before I continue on with that, just wanted to explain the part about how many of us go through that phase of feeling crazy, feeling like we've lost our mind. That is part of the process. As our ego dies, we go through the craziness, because as the ego is dying, it still tries to like claw its way back almost, and it tries to tell us that we're crazy and that none of this makes sense. It's almost like its way of going, you know, pick me, don't pick the soul, pick me, because the soul side is irrational. So that's where the craziness is coming from in my perspective. Okay, so my apartment as of yesterday was empty, and my parents knew more about it than I did. So let's talk about this. I didn't write this in my journal, but the weird thing is the landlord or whoever went through my phone book, and it was very odd. They actually ended up calling my mom's mom, so my maternal grandmother, so didn't even have the same last name as me. Why on earth would they pick her to phone? I have no idea. So then my grandmother calls my parents and says, "Hey, do you know what's happened with your daughter?" And thank goodness I had already talked to my parents, so they knew a little bit. They didn't know the extent of everything. So you can imagine it was a huge shock for them, and they're wondering what on earth has happened to their child, and has she gone nuts? So I said, they are coming here at noon, and we are going to get at least some of my stuff, which is at Liquidation World.
Liquidation World is a clearance place that sells stuff that is needing to be liquidated from
different stores.
Stores or bankruptcies or
evictions. Didn't know before that that's what happened to some people's stuff, including mine. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get some of my stuff at Liquidation World before it's auctioned off at 6 p.m. tonight. Talk about timing. One day late on calling my parents and all of my stuff would be gone. I have no idea where I'm going to stay tonight, or the rest of my life for that matter. I'd like to go back to Edmonton and see Sandra, my counselor. She knows me best and would be able to tell me best if I've lost it. I find it really odd that I got the urge to call her on Monday, and I told her what's happening in my life. So amazing that she already knew, thank goodness. I had a long conversation with her and told her everything, and again, she didn't, go, "Oh my God, like, are you nuts?" But counselor's not supposed to do that anyway. So I wrote, then Tuesday, my parents go into her office to see her and find out if she knew anything of my whereabouts. Slightly coincidental. Why would my parents even think to go see my old therapist? So first of all, like the synchronicities, I mean, this whole path sounds crazy, all together. Here I am, evicted. Now I'm having to go and retrieve some of my stuff, or even if I can, I don't know, that's at Liquidation World. But the timing of everything, I had just felt inspired to call my counselor and I told her everything. The very next day, my parents go in and see her. This is, by the way, the counselor that I had seen for 4 years in Edmonton. So I hadn't even seen her in a year and a half. And all of a sudden, I feel inspired to call her. And then my parents go talk to her. So, of course, she was able to relieve them and go, "It's okay. Like, I just talked to her yesterday. She's doing all right." Just the whole synchronicity of it. And then the timing of me being able to reach my parents the day before all my stuff was going to be sold off. Incredible timing. Now, when you're in the midst of it all, you don't necessarily see all the blessings, but looking back, it's amazing to see the divinity. Okay, so this is now the liquidation world story. I said, very hard day at first. I asked Tanya to be with me at Liquidation World because I knew I was not going to take all of my stuff, and I knew it would be hard. I walked in and my stuff was all there in boxes and people were rummaging through it. That freaked me and I cried. Tanya was wonderful and supportive. I was crying and saying, people are touching my stuff, they're touching me. And Tanya helped me see what it was all about. My stuff is only stuff, it's not me, nor does it make me who I am. That's why I had to let it go. It was very hard at first to choose what to take and what not to, but I did it with spiritual guidance because I knew I was only to take important stuff, not all of it. And I mean, how was I going to take all of it? How am I going to buy back my stuff? Because it's not like I could just take it. I mean, I'd been evicted. They were going to sell my stuff and use it to pay the rent that I owed them, which, very fair. Now, I find it interesting, a piece that I didn't write in my journal, but that is the strongest memory of that whole experience, was people going through my stuff, and the night we were there, we were just allowed, for everybody else, they were just allowed to look at the stuff, and then the auction would be the next day. So I'm like grabbing some stuff of mine, and one lady says to me, you can't take stuff, it's just a preview tonight. And I looked over to her and I said, this is my stuff. And I just felt so angry, indignant, disgusted that all these people are like rummaging through my stuff. It just was devastating, heartbreaking. But yet in the midst of it, I'm actually learning what it's about. At the same time, it was a very hard, interesting experience. So I wrote that some of the stuff that I bought back was my music because that was very significant to me. My spiritual books, which is why I still have them. You know, last video we showed you one of my books and you know the writing inside of it. That's why I still have them, because I bought them back. I said I left all of my nursing books, and because I was guided to. I still feel sad about that, only because, not for the fact that there's books. I mean, I could rebuy any textbooks if I wanted to. But I didn't just use them as textbooks. They were manuals to me, and I had, you know, notes all through them and highlighting, and my energy was all through them. But again, it was old energy. It needed to go. Another thing I bought back was my Sabrina light, the one that we've had in a couple of our videos. If you remember the little angel that Vic had bought me for Christmas the year before. I got that back. So, of course, I left all of my furniture, my kitchen stuff, bathroom stuff, clothes, crafts, wall hanging, beads, jewelry, all of my earrings, which saddens me.
That's okay. She's replaced them with 1,000 more.
Yes, I have. And just to explain, jewelry for me, is, you know, if you've seen our videos, you see that I usually have jewelry on. It's not anything about status for me. What I love about jewelry is that it sparkles, and the sparkle reminds me of home. What I do now, anytime I'm, you know, doing a purge of stuff, how I decide what I'm getting rid of is to ask myself, does this feed my soul? Jewelry feeds my soul because it reminds me of home. For any of you, those that may have had a near-death experience, or if you just remember spirit world, everything there is colorful and bright and living, and just it radiates, it sparkles. Like there's just such an energy to it. I remember home so well, which is why I've been suicidal for so many years of my life. So I love jewelry for that reason, but I knew all of my jewelry needed to stay behind, so I didn't take it. So I was just describing what I was keeping and what I wasn't keeping, but I was also describing how amazed I was what I got to keep. They did pack me some boxes that I didn't even have to buy back. They were just stuff that they had decided was personal. And there was some stuff that really shouldn't have been personal, like that they could have sold for money, but I got it back, so I was amazed. So a couple days later, I'm not only grieving over my soul or my ego that I've lost, I'm now grieving over stuff that I've lost, and I'm grieving over my apartment that I've lost. So I said, I'm truly going to miss that place. I loved it there. I loved my tiny pink apartment, and I loved being in the same building as Rob. I loved my mountain view and my sunsets every day. I loved living by the river in Kensington and downtown. It's going to take some time and grieving to get over the loss of my place, especially the way that I did. I'm truly confused as to why it had to happen the way it did. I still have so many questions. What about my mail? What about my stuff in my storage room? Will I be able to retrieve that? Or will that be cleared out too? So, yes, there's a part of me sort of understanding what's going on, but oh my God, still a lot of confusion, a lot of sadness, frustration, devastation, just challenging times. So now this is October 30th, and I've written, what a terrible day. I've cried most of the day because my life is so messed up. What happens tomorrow? Where do I go? How do I survive? I need to go to Beth's because my stuff is there, and she's supposed to be having a party tomorrow night. Not sure what my plans are on how I'm going to move on, because at this point, it had been a month that I was there, and her husband is very much my personality. He's very much an introvert, needs his space, and he just couldn't handle having somebody else living there. Even though I tried to be out as much as possible, I tried to stay out of the way, it didn't matter. And I so get that, because I'm the same way. Sharing your home, if you're highly introverted, highly sensitive, no, doesn't work. So as hard as it was for her, she said I couldn't live there anymore. So now I'm like, great, now where do I go? So I've not only lost all my stuff, and just to explain, it's in my journals, but it's too confusing to explain. My parents, amazingly enough, they didn't rescue me. They did, of course, take me to Liquidation World. They paid $100 for me to buy back a few of my things. And then they felt that they had to just leave me. They, surprisingly enough, that's not at all their way, but they felt that, no, I had to dig myself out of my own hole. So, again, just the divinity in it all, that they didn't rescue me, they didn't say, okay, you're coming with us. And not that they could, they were living out of a fifth wheel trailer as they were traveling Canada, so they were going to carry on with their trip. So it's not even like they had a place that I could stay at. So I was just kind of on my own. So now I've got some more anger, and I said, I hate my soul for thinking it could do this. I hate it for being so cocky and figuring it could do this crucifixion stuff. So I was just like, what kind of soul, what kind of being puts themselves through this kind of hell? So now I've said, I've just went through another loss. Robert. I showed up at his place asking if I could stay there. Are you kidding me? I can't believe I did that. That was obviously a push from God, because now that I think back on all of this, how could I? How could I just show up unannounced and ask if I could stay? I have to accept that it was inevitable. It was bound to happen. Something had to push him over the edge enough to agree to walk away. He's been super tolerant of all of this, probably hoping that I would come to my senses eventually. Well, I've been waiting for him to change and come on my path. The fact is, as hard as it is to let go, again, we're on about the 4th or 5th time of letting go, it's bound to happen. After finding the sheet of the Ascension stages, I realized I'm a different person. And now, just to explain, the sheet of Ascension stages is amazing. Thank you. Just to first show, this book just kind of jumped out at me on my bookshelf a couple weeks ago. This is a book that I was reading a long time ago as my way of coping, trying to have hope. And I just felt like I needed to pull it off the shelf. So I did, and lo and behold, I find a piece of paper in it. And what's on this piece of paper is something that I found at a bookstore back then, and it literally lists all of the Ascension stages. Oh my God. So I got this when I was at like level 10, which is talking about death of the old self. I'll scan this and put this on our page, our Facebook page, TwinFinity's, so you guys can see it. But amazing that I was actually given this information. Yeah, it was kind of late, you know, here I am way in the path and deep on the path. But that's what I was referring to in my journal here, was this sheet of Ascension stuff. So I said the changes are only going to get more significant, and either Rob was going to somehow catch up to where I'm at and what I've learned, or he was going to leave my life. Once again, choice number 2 was taken. He's just not there yet and may never be. What I don't get is why. Why am I still so attached? Why the deep soul connection if we're only meant to go this far? Again, back then, we had no idea about our connection. I was ready to let Vic go, my parents go, Beth go, but why not Robert? When it was finally the right time, I was even able to let Rob number 1 go after 7 years. What is it about Robert that still feels like we are connected? Is it just me denying and not wanting to let go, or is it because there's something that we can't let go of yet? We've done this on-off thing since the end of January, 9 months of wanting to let go, but not being able to. Yeah. So after saying goodbye to Rob, I went and called Tanya and told her as I cried, just absolute sadness of all my losses. So now, I've got nothing. I've lost Rob. I've lost places to live. I've got nowhere to live. At this point, Tanya had been evicted as well. She was now staying with a neighbor. So I couldn't really stay there. So life was even worse than it was after last video. I basically had nowhere to go, nothing, no money, nothing to own except a few things, which I think I stored at my friend Beth's. So, challenging times.
And you know, without realizing it, I was actually kind of at a phase where I was thinking very much like Angie's parents. I've had a history of being a bit of a rescuer.
Yes.
And I was bound and determined. I'd committed to myself that I was not going to rescue Angie.
Yeah.
So when she would come to me for any bit of help, I would say no. I would talk to her, and that would be about it. I wasn't ever going to give her money. I wasn't ever going to let her move in with me, because a bit of me was also very disappointed that she had let herself fall so far. Like, at some point, I thought she would pull herself up by the bootstraps and go out and find some income and get by. She hadn't. But still, that wasn't my problem. She had a family. She has a couple of brothers, mom and dad. If worst comes to worst, they could always come pick her up and take her, quote-unquote, home. I didn't think it was my job, and I didn't make it my job.
Oh. And I think on some level, you knew, whether you were conscious of it or not, you knew you couldn't rescue me. You knew I had to do this path.
You see, and also, I didn't know of anything I could do to help.
Yeah.
And just giving a person shelter doesn't help them. She needed help far beyond what I understood. And I knew she wasn't crazy. I just knew that she needed to somehow or another just learn how to choose better paths. And by giving her the opportunity to not choose better paths, she wasn't going to choose them on her own. So I knew it wasn't my job. It just wasn't. And I didn't feel good about that. But for whatever reason, I stayed my course. I guess I knew it was better in the long run.
Yeah.
As hard as it was.
Yeah, it just was the way it had to be. Now, on that note, though, I just want to reiterate, some of you have messaged us and shared that you have gone through this to the point of losing everything. Some have even lost more than what I lost. But for those of you that aren't experiencing this, please know that it's not everybody's path. Don't fear and think, oh my God, because she went through it, I'm going to go through it. This isn't for everybody. Again, I don't know why. I don't know why some people's souls chose to lose everything and others didn't. Maybe because I had more old energy. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I had in my apartment was from my childhood. I mean, even my bed was my parents' old bed. You can imagine that was old energy. It really needed to go. So maybe there's lots of other people's that stuff that isn't old energy and can raise in vibration with them. I don't honestly have all those answers. I just know that you don't need to fear that you're going to go through this, because it's certainly not the path everybody has to take. Rob didn't go through it in that way. A lot of other people that I know have never lost all of their stuff or any of their stuff on this journey.
Loss can happen in many ways.
Yeah.
And if you have lost something and come out the other side, there's a saying that really, really bothers me in life, but it says what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And in some applications, it's true. I don't recommend going down it if you don't have to. But if losing, losing a corner of your mind, or losing some physical stuff, or losing all your friends, or losing family, or losing a relationship, if that's what you must go through, then I guess that's what's going to happen. But thank goodness, most of us come out the other side in one piece.
Yes, and that's exactly how I was going to add to it, is to say, if you are going through this, or if it ends up that you go through this, know that, you know what, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'm still here. We're still together. So, you know what? It does make you better. It does make you stronger. Yes, it sucks to go through it. I mean, it wasn't like it was a joyous time in my life, let's be honest. But it wasn't the end of the world. It was just stuff. So, not a big deal in the big scheme of things.
Okay.
So I hopefully have eased your mind on all of that, and don't panic that this isn't everybody's path. So on that note, now that we're starting to get cold because our sun left, we're going to say goodbye.
Yeah, the sun is ducked in behind the mountains, and
we're
so the air.
starting to shiver.
I'm starting to shiver. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's. I bet you it's dropped at least 5 degrees in the past 10 minutes.
Yeah, we still got to hike out of here. So.
Yeah, we're still an hour and a half away from turning on the ignition and having a nice warm vehicle.
Yeah. All right, so we love you guys. Thanks for tolerating another long video. The next one should hopefully be a little more manageable. And as always, remember to connect with your twin, go within, and we'll be in touch in another week or so. Bye.
Bye.